watch on YouTube later on. We're going to start on the dashboard page. Mostly used for navigation, but as I scroll down this page, there's a couple of things that I want to draw your attention to. First is the app favorites section. App favorites will show you the number of people who have gone to the My Race Pass app and favorited your facility. The advantage for fans doing so will be they get push notifications on their device when your guys' fantasy groups open, when your races start, if you have a cancellation, if you post a news article, those types of things. Those things will all generate a push notification in the app for those people. So they'll be, they'll be aware of what you're doing and what's going on at your facility. There's also a snapshot of your subscription information here, as well as a rewards snapshot here. The reward stuff is going to change, so don't put too much stock into that right now. But the other thing that I really want to highlight on this screen at the very bottom is the sandbox. Sandbox is a siloed environment that's a direct copy of your live environment data. If you go to the sandbox, you can, practice a different lineup scheme or event format, or see what happens when you click a button, those types of things. It won't have any effect on your live environment data. So sandbox can be valuable for practicing. And then we also have all of our support links over here, our support links for the season management section, the race management section, all the videos, those types of things as well. So that's everything on the dashboard page, or many things on the dashboard page. I'm going to jump into the profile tab next. Profile tab. I'll show you a few things. First, how to update your images, right? Your profile image, your header image that appear in the app. This is all app-specific stuff. And you can also edit your profile information, whether you click Edit Now or you come to the Profile tab. You're setting your track basics, right? The length, the shape, the banking, the address information, any contact information you want to show. You can move around the Google Maps location data as well. So you can put a pinpoint on the map here where you want your facility to show. That way people can get directions to your racetrack right here, or basically right in the app, which makes it, obviously significantly easier for folks to find you. And a lot of that stuff will pretty much never change, right? Unless you're brand new to the facility and you're filling in the contact information for the first time. Most of that stuff will just never change. As we come down the screen, there's a track features section. And this is one thing that I would always advise everyone to go through at least once a year, right? Your fan information, your pit information, basically amenities type things. Do you allow ATMs? Do you allow coolers? Do you, what kind of camping do you have? Do you sell fuel? Do you sell tires? Those types of things. Folks might be able to start to answer their own questions in the app. Obviously anything you can do to cut down on phone calls on race night can help you in the long run. The last thing on this profile screen is the alias section. If your racetrack has ever been known by a different name or is commonly searched for by a different name, add that other name as an alias. That way, if somebody searches the app for that wrong name, it still brings them to the right profile. I always use the example, we've got I-90 Speedway near where I am in South Dakota. Their track name officially is I-90. Well, they could search, folks could search I-90 or I-90 shoved together, those types of things. So if you can get those aliases in there to encompass all the ways people could search for your name, it'll make it easier for those folks to find you in the app. Billing information is next on the screen. Billing information, pretty straightforward stuff here. You'll be able to view all of your previous invoices and links. You'll be able to update your billing information, change the plan type that you've got, all of those types of things. You can also add all access accounts in the app for your for any user that you want by email address, and depending on the plan type that you're on, you'll either have 2, 4, or 6 free all access accounts. So you can start to grant free app subscriptions to people, on your staff or whoever you deem that need them. Rewards information, like I said, this page is going to change. These rewards buckets are going to change, so I'm not going to really spend any time here. I'll jump to users next. Users is a way to add administrators to your profile. There's a number of different user permission types. To add a user permission, first name, last name, and email address. And the permission type, site admin, box office, or ticket redemption. Anybody who needs access to all of the options on your profile is going to be site administrators. Add them as a site admin. Box office users will have access to the point of sale system if you're using our advanced ticketing features, which we'll talk about on Friday. Ticket redemption users will have access to the in-app ticket scanner, so they can scan tickets as they come through the gate. So Box office ticket redemption have to do with ticketing processes. Everybody else is a site administrator. You should never add anybody as a designer. That's that comes back to when we're building a website for you, we'll have a designer role user there. But beyond that, really no reason for anyone else to be a designer in there. The other options that you see, payments, permissions, and clear cache are developer tools, so you won't see any of those things. That's basically everything in the profile tab. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Just kind of some getting started type things. Before we move ahead to season management. Season management is where we are going to be creating a season, creating events, getting registrations in. There's some fantasy racing tools here as well. So this is basically preparing for your new year, for lack of a better term. So when I go to season management, you'll see on the upper left-hand portion of the screen, I've got a 2024 season created already. But it's possible if you have not created your new schedule yet that you'll need to create a new season up here. So if I click on the 2024 Your Favorite Track season, it'll give me the option to create a new one. If you haven't created a new one yet, it's already the end of February. We're behind schedule at that point. So create a new calendar year. And then once you've created a new calendar year, the next option that you'll come to is the config tab. Config is where we're going to start adding any touring series or any classes that are racing at your racetrack throughout the course of the year. So a series defined as, one organization that has a points calculation that covers multiple venues, right? It's a class that travels from track to track. They tour around the country. Add your series first, and whatever series that might be, whether it's World of Outlaw Sprint Cars or Cars Tour or ARCA East or whatever it is. You can add any series that you want here. So when I go to add, I go to all series, and it's just a search bar, right? So if I'm adding ARCA, I can search ARCA, and I'll say it's an ARCA East show, ARCA Menard Series East, and add. The reason that I add a series first is you'll see what looks like an error message, but all this is telling you is that ARCA Menard Series requires the ARCA class. We have a class specific to that entity. Would you like to add this class? If you continue, it'll add the ARCA Menard Series. It'll also add ARCA as a class. So you're basically killing two birds with one stone there. Add all the series first. Once the series are added, you can come down to start to add the classes that are racing at your track. And this is, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. We'll go to add classes. Any classes that you've ever used in the past will show here first. So if you're a returning user to My Race Pass from last year, the classes that you had last year will be here. It'll be simple to, check the boxes and add. If you're adding anything new or different, instead of the My Classes view, which is what it defaults to, you can go to all classes. And here we can pick from type of racing. So I can choose from late models or stock cars or modifieds or whatever. The different late model classes that we've got available. I would advise you to not choose late model classes that are associated with a different sanctioning body like WSOTA or USRA. It's not going to pay dividends for you. You're going to want to add one of the out-of-the-box classes like just limited late models or just sportsman late models or whatever you need to do, and add your classes that way. So we add our series and our classes here in the config tab. Once this is done, these are the options that you'll have to choose from when you're creating events later on. So when I go to the events tab, you can have various schedules in your events tab. And I really want to make sure that naming convention is clear, right? That sounds confusing. You can have a season that we added previously, or you can have schedules. It seems like it should be the same thing. In My Race Pass, the season is basically just a length of time from when your season starts to your season ends. Typically, I just leave it at a calendar year, right? Jan 1 to December 31, and that's my season. And then, next year I'll create a 25 and so on and so forth. The schedule, though, the schedule is, I like to think of it as an individual points tally at your racetrack. Most tracks, like 95% of the tracks that we work with, will have one schedule. You're just calculating points one time for those classes. But if you do have a reason to calculate points in multiple tallies, to track tallies separately, you can have multiple schedules in My Race Pass for that. There is, for example, there's a track that I'm aware of in Michigan that we work with that has their full 25 race schedule that they have, but then they have 6 individual events throughout that, throughout their year that they call their Big Six series. and they calculate those points for those nights independently of their regular season. So they have a regular season champion and a Big Six series champion at the end of the year. So they would have 2 seasons for that, or two schedules for that, excuse me. I know that there's a few of you out there in the NASCAR world that are doing some kind of 4-race playoff at the end, or a chase or a championship night or things of that nature. I think the easiest way to do that is through a separate schedule as well. So you can track your regular season points all year long. And then if you're having a championship night where the points reset, you can, calculate points independently for that race as well. A couple of different ways to do things. An event can calculate points for 2 different schedules at the same time too. So if that comes into play, that's pretty high level stuff though in my race pass. So if that's something that you think is going to affect you or your racetrack, get a hold of us. We're happy to help set these types of things up. Either way, I'm going to look into one of my schedules. When I create a new schedule, I'll have these options, and I'm just going to edit this one so you can see all the same options. But you can name, you can re-year if you want to have it be a part of a different year. You can add any description information here as well. And then there's an advanced championship calculation. I'm going to talk about that when I get to the points tab. But just know that this encompasses kind of a custom points championship for you. When I go into any of my schedules that I've got created, this is where I can start to add events to those schedules, right? So I've got a list of events that are created here. I'm going to add an event for this coming Saturday, and all week long, we can kind of use that event that I create for this coming Saturday. So what's that? March 2nd. Create an event for March 2nd. You can pick multiple dates on this calendar to add many events at the same time. I'm just going to choose one for now. So when I save, you can name your event, whatever you want it to be, right? Perfect. Named our event. Add the times that exist, right? When do your pits open? When do your fan gates open? Hot laps, racing starts, those types of things. We have time trials and eliminations set in here as well. Those are set aside for drag racing tracks, so you won't see these things unless you also have a drag strip at your venue, and we want to create a profile for that as well. You can change your event type also, right? Can it be a racing event, a concert, a banquet, a car show, those types of things. So if you're going to have something on your schedule that is not a racing event, you can do that. And then at this point, you also add your classes, right? So I'm just going to I'll add 2 classes to my event. I'll say it's a stock car race, and then there's a 410 sprint car race, and that's good. So you name, add any description information, add your relevant times, add your classes, and now I've got an event. And that's all it really takes to add an event as well. So when I go to edit that event, I can click into it to edit all of those same things, right? Rename, reset the times, change the description if you want to change the description information, and edit the classes, add a series, those types of things. There's also an option here for adding tickets. It's really simple to add general admission tickets to an event. I can start from scratch, or I can copy from a previous race. But if I go next, I can add availability dates, ticket types, all of those types of things. On Friday, we'll talk about tickets a little bit more in depth, including a reserve seating map. But just know it's really simple to add tickets here. You can add them basically in 30 seconds to any event. And there's no extra cost to do tickets through my race pass. It's part of your plan. Nothing wrong with throwing tickets out there if you don't already. I would always recommend to have tickets in advance online for your events. But that's basically the events tab. Not much more in here for any of this. I get one other thing I should say in the events tab. When you click into an event, there's this running as scheduled option down here. If your event is canceled or rained out for whatever reason, you can change the status of an event to as scheduled, to rained out or postponed or canceled or high winds or whatever, however you want to say you canceled your event. It'll also send a push notification to your folks who have favorited your racetrack in the app to tell them that the event was canceled. You can add a special message to that if you need to, if you're going to give them more information on that. When you cancel an event here that has tickets assigned to it, there will be an option to migrate those tickets to a different event or to refund those tickets. You can do either one, just so you're aware. From here, I'm going to talk about registrations, kind of go back here a little bit to registrations. We've changed our registration process here recently, and we plan to continue tweaking it as the season draws closer. But the baseline of it is still relatively the same, right? So I can add a registration type, and there's a number of types you can add. A yearly registration is just once a year, annual. They can become a member at your racetrack, or you can use this to gather their information, however you want to handle that. There's also an event-specific registration. If you're requiring your drivers to register for each event or for one special event, or however you want to handle that, you can do it that way. A general registration is built in here for a non-racing event. So think pit party, think banquet, think something like that. You can have a general registration out there. We use one for a golf tournament at the track that I'm racing at. You can register for the golf tournament this way. And then there's a miscellaneous competitor registration, which is just a general registration for racing competitors. So it includes all of the features of a yearly registration, but it's just used for miscellaneous purposes. The registration will gather driver information such as name, contact information, phone and email, address information, car number, transponder number, jacket size, emergency contact, car owner, if applicable, those types of things. It'll ask for those types of things. And again, some of those fields, we're working on optimizing those in the future. I don't want to give anything away, but registration is something we're actively working on. You can also charge for registration. So you can, charge an entry fee or a membership fee or a registration fee, whatever you want to call it, whether that's for the year or whether that's for a single event or whatever else. This is the big change that has happened in my race pass here in registrations just in the last couple of weeks, is those registration funds used to be dispersed via PayPal. We used to send those to a PayPal account. We now use an internal system similar to online tickets to grant those registration funds and send them directly to your bank account, right? So if you're having a yearly registration, every Monday, we'll send all of the registration funds that were confirmed in the last week, right? So a driver registers Thursday, you confirm the registration, all of those types of things. Then the following Monday is when we'll send that money out. Now there's an ACH process. It could take a day or two to get to your bank account, but we send it on the following Monday for all confirmed registrations from the prior week. If it's an event-specific registration, we like to wait until after the event is over. That way, if the event has concluded or if it rained out, we can handle the refunds, right? Then you don't have to worry about those refunds. Now, we can send those registration funds in advance a week before the event. But again, we like to wait until after the event in case it cancels or rains out for whatever reason. That way we can handle the refunds and you don't have to. In this screen, you can share a link to the registration that you've got directly to your social media account with this share button. So if you click share here, share it to Facebook. There's a report if you're charging for registration. There's a sales audit report that'll show you how many registrants you've got, how much money you've made off of those, things of that nature. There's a direct link to your online registration. And then there's also an option to view the registrants, which right now I've got one in this class, whatever else. You can view the invoice. You can view the actual registration form. If you registered in the wrong class by mistake, you can change the class, view all of the other information, those types of things here in registration. So that's valuable and necessary to use. Always recommend to have a registration out there. Even if you're not going to charge for it, have a free one out there. At the end of the year, one of the most common questions that we get here at My Race Pass is, okay, we've tracked their payments all year long. Now, how do I get their addresses so I can send 1099s to them? Well, the answer to that question is to use registration. Have a registration out there at the beginning of the year. Let the drivers audit their own information that way. Continue down this screen here to the points tab. Points will show you kind of what you would expect the points page to show you, right? There's, all of the drivers in a list here. There's your events, your features, your wins, your top fives, all those types of things, the point differential. The earnings column off to the right is not publicly available anywhere. And so I really disregard it here in this screen. It's never going to be displayed publicly anywhere. If you click on the name of any driver in this screen, it'll give you an event-specific breakdown of their points and pay. All right, so if I click 128 here, I can see that this driver finished 5th, got 125 points, got $1,800, got an $80 bonus in his Heat 2, whatever. Those types of things. So I can audit this list on an event-specific basis for each driver. I think as racetrack operators, we're all pretty aware of the idea that if there's a discrepancy or an error in the point standings, the driver is going to recognize it long before you will. So when they call you and they say, hey, I don't think something's right here, you can pretty easily audit that list for that driver to kind of see what was going on. There's also a list of included events on this screen. So you can audit that list on an event-specific basis for all drivers. And then there's a non-points events option here as well. So any events that you've run that you did not calculate points for will show up here in this non-points events area as well to give you an idea of your non-points nights. This is also where the championship settings lives, which is that advanced championship calculation that I said we'd come back to. So this, think of it as like a customization to a regular point standing for your track. So you can have throwout nights. You can create throwout nights here. So if you run 20 nights throughout the course of the year, you're throwing out their worst 2 or you're only keeping their top 18 or something like that, you can use this option to create your throwout nights. You can have a rookie-specific point standing. So if you want to have rookie points out there publicly for everybody in a class, you can use advanced championship calculation for that. When they register, they'll mark if they're a rookie or not, which you, of course, can approve. And then if you've approved their rookie status and you use advanced championship calculation to turn on rookie point standings, then, you'll have rookie points out there publicly. You can also have age-specific point standings. I know that there's a couple of tracks out there that I'm aware of who have like a seniors division. So, across all classes, anybody who's 55 or up or whatever, you can have a special point standing for that. You can have a special point standing for classes being combined into one points group. Those types of any kind of customization of the point standing you can do here through the advanced championship calculation. And yeah, that's pretty much what that is. You can toggle competitor to owner points here as well. So if you've got an owner point standing, you can do that. And you can toggle between classes at the top of the screen. The payments tab, I'm going to kind of save the bulk of this until Wednesday when we talk about race management, because it'll make sense with fresh data in there. But I'll give you a quick overview of the payments tab here. In the payments tab, it's an event-specific and class-specific breakdown of all of your purse payouts. You can use My Race Pass to track your purse payouts. So, my event date of 2/20, February 20th for my stock cars, my total purse was this, 18,490. And if I click here, I can see the individual payouts for each driver on that race night, right? So, winner got $2,090, those types of things, how they were paid. If you use My Race Pass to print your checks, all of the checks are down here as well. There's reports that you can run for drivers signing for their checks. You can print mailing labels. You can export to QuickBooks, all of those types of things. So you can review all of those purse payouts here, including if it went to a driver or an owner, right? This would be an owner payout. So the check was printed to the owner option here. So again, we'll look at this in a little bit more detail Wednesday when we get through a race night. But this payments tab is where you can review those things. The next option here is fantasy racing. Fantasy racing is something that's really, really taken off here at My Race Pass. It's a fan engagement tool. So I'm going to kind of tell you about the features and the things that you can do or whatever else. But this is a tool in the app that is specific to engaging your fans. I don't want you to think about this any other way other than I'm engaging my fans with this. So in My Race Pass, in the app, every race night that you run, the app will automatically create fantasy groups. Fans will be able to make picks from those groups. Points will accumulate automatically. You'll have a winner in each division that you run and an overall winner at the end of the night. All of that happens with no input from you. That is a default setting of the app. That just occurs by itself. What you can do to augment that experience for your fans. If I click into one of the fantasy groups, we'll say the MRP stock cars for the year. I'll look at this. You can add prizes to your fantasy groups, right? So now your fans can be competing for something. And that doesn't mean that you have to go out and spend money on prizes, right? You have marketing partners. You want them to, have a unique access to your fan base in a way that, invites fans to interact with their brand, just like they're interacting with your racetrack. So find a marketing partner that wants to give away merchandise. I don't know, 50% off oil changes to Bob's Garage or T-shirts or, whatever they want to give away. You can use fantasy to give those things away. You can also rename your fantasy group. And this is an opportunity for you to make money from thin air. If you in the dirt track racing world, I don't know if you noticed last year's Knoxville Nationals, they had a fantasy racing competition that was sponsored by Avanti Windows and Doors. So you can give naming rights to your fantasy challenge here. Again, you have a marketing partner that wants to do something more than just a billboard, but you're not sure what. This is an opportunity for them to have a unique experience marketing at your racetrack with a digital footprint directly to your most diehard fans, which is valuable. So rename your fantasy group, add prizes. You can see the events that are included in that points tally. We don't have standings because this is a pretend racetrack, but eventually you'd be able to see your winners, your standings, those types of things. You can use, people are going to be on their phones anyway. That's just the reality of the world we live in. So you want them interacting with your racetrack as opposed to, on Facebook, looking at a picture of their friends going camping, thinking, hey, maybe I should do that next week, right? Have them interacting with your facility. Fantasy is a tool to be able to do that. Last thing here in season management is the suspensions tab. This is this was new last year, but this is still another fairly new feature here where you can start to use this to track suspensions, right? So here's all my suspensions that exist. I can add a new suspension up here in the upper left-hand portion of the screen. You can put in the start date and end date for your suspension, the type of suspension that it is, right? Misconduct, claim refusal, claim still exists in places. If there's a fee associated with whatever that fee is, and competitor information, right? So which driver is being suspended here? I can choose myself, whatever else. There's some backgate notes and internal notes here as well. The backgate notes will show for the person who is doing driver entries on race night. Whatever you put in here will show there. But when I got a suspension created, do I have one that's still active here? That's lifted. That one's still active. Perfect. When I've got one that's active here, I can change the backgate notes, change the internal notes, edit the type of suspension that it is, all those types of things. Edit what classes that driver is suspended in, whether it's one class or all current and future classes. And then there's a revoke points option here too. So if you want points to go away for that suspended driver for a longer duration of time than when you created the suspension, revoke points is here as well. But in the screen, you can also tell the program if the status is lifted or if they're still suspended, and if the payment is paid or unpaid, which again are options that will show in the entry screen on race night management. To show you if a driver has been suspended. Hopefully you'll never have to worry about that screen, but it is here and available if you need it. That's season management. The bulk of this, right, is going to be the config, creating your events, and getting a registration out there. But once you've done that, I really encourage you to play around with fantasy, see how it might be able to help your facility. And then suspensions is available here as well. I'm also going to go through some reports here. I don't know, I just kind of had to wedge reports in, so it doesn't seem like it's necessarily associated with the rest of the session, but I had to fit it in somewhere. So reports is an option here as well that I'll show you, and we'll go through a couple of the key reports that I really want you to see, you can play with the other ones as you see fit. First off, in the report section, they're divided out by section. The entry list reports are here. And a lot of these can be printed from race management too, but they're all here for you. You can print the entry list, including a transponder list. The transponder list is nice, right? Because it will show you, and of course, I picked an example where nobody rented a transponder, but it'll show you in this checkbox here who rented a transponder that night, right? So you find out you're missing a transponder. If you mark the rented box in race management in the entry screen, it'll show you who rented it, and maybe that'll give you an idea as to where to go to find that transponder. I'm going to keep picking examples with no rentals, aren't I? Yeah, okay. Well, I don't have any rentals there, but you'll be able to see the transponder rentals there in that report. There's also a provisionals report, and then the entry counts. Really, I think are interesting. I use the entry counts, and I use the average pill draw too. But I use those two reports when I'm preparing for year-end banquets. Gives me an idea of how many cars showed up to each race in each class, and everybody complains about their pill draw, those types of things. The next section here is the lineup reports. There's not much here. There's really three lineup reports that can be used commonly. And these can be printed out of Race Management as well. But if you're still printing your lineups, this is the easiest way to be able to print the lineups, right? So if I bring up the lineup sheet report, pick the event, it gives me lineups that I can print right here, right? And there's 3 lineup reports that you can use. It just kind of depends on, right, what format you want them in. You can choose the format. Whatever looks the best for you and your facility and your folks, you can use that. Those lineup reports are necessary. Event reports here as well. If you need to print or send event reports to anybody, you absolutely can. Event results are in here. So a lot of times this is nice to send to a newspaper publication or to use when you're writing your own news article at the end of a race night. You can use these results to send them whatever they need to be able to send. There's event results, qualifying results, all those types of things. The media results is just basically all the same information in a string of text. This is what I use when I'm writing a news article, right? I'll just copy the results from the A feature and then paste it into the bottom of the news article to give it some more content at the end there for the full results rundown. Point reports are here as well. For your current points, your points earned on each date, all of those types of things. This is also where you find your point averages. A lot of folks are lining up their heat races or features by the point average. This is where you can find those point averages, whether it's for the last 2 races or running for the last 3 races competed in, those types of things. And then I think the most important one here is the 1099 report. 1099 report will give you an indication of how much money each driver owed or was paid, as long as it was more than $600 throughout the course of the year. And this is where you can start to prepare for those 1099s, right? And you can export all this information into Excel to be able to import into a 1099 software. We've got it pretty seamless with a software called W2Mate, to where in about 10 minutes you can have all your 1099s either emailed to your tax professional or printed if you're printing them yourself. So that 1099 report is valuable there as well. There's a lot of other reports, a lot of things going on. I encourage you to look through them, see what you can utilize either on race night or for a banquet or other information. So went through a lot of stuff there, right? We talked about getting started in the dashboard. We talked about your profile tab and the different things that you can do there. And then also season management, right? Creating your events, getting a registration out there, fantasy racing, and then some reports. I really appreciate those of you who tuned in, were a part of this. I would encourage you in the chat to put in your name, put in the track that you're with. If you're watching on the Google Meet, that way we can track who's all here and who's not. And then if you're watching on Facebook, throw any questions that you've got along with your name and the track that you're with in the comments. That way, we can figure out who's here, circle back with questions, those types of things. If you have questions, email support@myracepass.com. We've got a number of people monitoring that inbox. We can answer the questions that you've got. We also have a help center, mrphelp.com. We have a YouTube page. All of these recordings will be uploaded to YouTube as well. So yeah, we've got avenues for you to reach out to us. We want you to reach out to us. We want to make you as comfortable with My Race Pass and as efficient in the tower as you can possibly be. That's all I have for today. On Wednesday, we'll circle back and we'll talk about race night management, your entries, your lineups, or results, connecting to Orbit's or Race Manager, live timing, payouts, those types of things. And then on Friday, we'll talk again about online tickets and our advanced ticketing features, creating news articles, website tools, and we'll have a general Q&A as well if necessary. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to shut it off now. But if you have any questions, please reach out, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.